in those cases where your solution didn't work or it didn't work as well as you like to, this is why this process is a circle and not a line. Because if at any point you're not getting what you're expecting to get, you can go back and look through your other steps to see if you set yourself up for success. Maybe there's something we missed defining about our current state. Maybe there's an element that's driving global warming that we don't fully understand yet enough to address. Maybe our ideal state isn't achievable. Maybe the temperature goals that we're setting are a little are above what we can do in a certain period of time. Maybe we identified the wrong root cause. That happens a lot in projects here where we think the root cause is over at the supplier, but the root cause is actually in our own installation. So we spend all this time working with the supplier, but it's our own installation people that we really needed to be working with. Or maybe there's just another solution that we can try, especially with the global warming example. There are so many solutions that haven't been implemented to their fullest extent or haven't been tried at all or aren't implemented into our everyday lives. So we can keep going in the circular method as long as your manager okays it and the resources are there to do it, then you get to keep solving the process. And finally, we found a solution that works. How do we keep it there? For global warming, we're not quite there yet. I certainly hope that maybe even one of you finds that solution. And I think that solution is going to be a massive team effort. As I've talked about, even my job is so collaborative with mechanics and engineers and leaders. So but in my little world, when I found something that works, the way I get it to stick is kind of in 3 parts. Documentation, super important. Create written standards that support the solution. So a lot of the time there's job instructions. So if we've changed something in the job, we make sure that that's in the job instructions. And having detailed records of how you came to the solutions that you did. This is why people publish scientific papers, so that there's a documented understanding of how you came to know that your solution, that your discovery is valid and is the best that it can be. Then spread the word. Because even if it's documented, if nobody knows that it's documented, that doesn't help you much. So leadership awareness and support is really helpful. Again, we talked immediately about leaders when it comes to global warming. Leadership awareness and support of solutions for global warming is absolutely vital, and even solutions for an airplane, absolutely vital. And also sharing with our colleagues. So I work on the 8-7 program, but there's also the 777 and the 6-7 and the 3-7 and a bunch more. So if my solution worked for me, can it work for them? And the more it's applied across the company, more it becomes standard, it becomes part of the culture, and it sticks. And finally, monitoring the work. So let's say we've made great strides in solving for global warming, our temperatures are coming back down. We want to periodically monitor that data so that we know our temperatures are staying down and we know our solutions are continuing to work. And that is the 5-step engineering problem-solving process. Now, in my head, I think that's fairly simple. How can it be a person's entire job? Well, airplanes, 3 million parts, lots of problems to solve. So we'll do workshops where we get engineers and mechanics and quality inspectors and leaders all in one room, and we come up with a lot of different problem statements at once. Sometimes we walk in with data, sometimes we walk in with stories. Sometimes we even start working root cause. So we'll have a big list of this year we want to go solve these problems. Then all of those problems get translated into project portfolios, which some of those problems are going to be smaller than others. Some of them are going to be really hard to solve. So each problem is going to get solved at a different rate. And I have to keep track of where each problem is in its 5-step solution wheel. And then there's no point tracking that unless I'm sharing it. So I share that information with leaders that then if there's something wrong, where we need more resources on another project. Maybe we need another type of engineer, another team to step in. Maybe there's finances that we need funding to buy something. We ask leaders to help us out with that and with solving those problems. And finally, as we've talked about with the global warming thing, it is an acknowledgement that you need money to run a business, and money kind of makes the world go round. So when we implement a change and it's actually made an improvement, we can usually see that in terms of dollars, whether that's we're not buying second issue parts anymore, or we're not having employees take as many sick days for injuries, or employees are able to work fewer hours because they're able to get their jobs done faster. That all translates to dollars. So we take that project portfolio and do a little forecasting on when we can expect those projects to finish and communicate that to finance so that they can expect their budget to decrease over time and they have an accurate estimate of how much the program is going to cost going forward. So all of that process is what I do in my job day to day for the 787 airplane. And now I've just started working with the paint hangers as well. Final slide, Boeing released its first ever diversity report last week. And I was kind of blown away by the percentage of women overall in the company and women in engineering. But they said it was in line with the industry. So I went and I did a little bit of digging, and we're actually ranked above other aerospace competitors. I do want to say that though Northrop Grumman and Raytheon are very connected with the military, and we do see percentages of women in engineering go down with military connection. And also we're only at 15% of women in the overall engineering workforce as of the census in 2019, which I have shown here. This is really surprising to me because my engineering field of industrial engineering, I think partially because it exists in a space between hard mathematical engineering and kind of business stuff, has one of the better rates of women in engineering. I've seen reports anywhere from 20% to, I think, Purdue, which is a big IE college, has like a 30% women IE graduation rate, which is fantastic. But it just shows, yes, we have come a long way for women in engineering, but we have a long way to go. That's my quick summary of the engineering improvement process. You have all now been through Engineering Process Improvement 101. The math is all learnable. The science is all learnable in whatever field you want to learn it. But if you can think through a systematic problem solving process like that, I think any of you can be engineers.
If anyone has a question they'd like to ask, would you put it into chat now? And Teresa, would you be able to ask those questions? I had a question, Romy. We'll start off while the girls are writing theirs.
Absolutely.
It's a great presentation. I was wondering, do you see yourself, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years or so?
I was anticipating that, so I prepped a little slide.
Oh, excellent.
Right now, I imagine myself in 5 years kind of being where I am, being an engineer, continuing to learn more. I'm still only 2 years into my actual career as an engineer. And as I said at the beginning of this, the last 10 years have gone really fast. So I'm hoping to just get to know the process of painting an airplane really well, hone my engineering skills. I'm loving living in Seattle. These were pictures that I took on a neighborhood walking, hiking trail a couple weeks ago. And I'm diving into hobbies that I didn't have time for during school. I'm hoping once COVID is solidly over, fully vaccinated as of Monday, to travel more. And maybe in 10 years, I'll do a little bit more school. I really love doing these talks. So something like a career coach, I think I do a lot of project management in my job. So getting certified on that, maybe a master's degree in something that builds on my field. But for right now, I'm just going to be an engineer and focus on that and enjoying my 20s.
Great. And Teresa, is there a good question there that you could pick out to ask?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. So I've got one that says, did you learn this approach or something like it in college or primarily through training at Boeing?
So I learned this approach primarily in school. In industrial engineering, this is something that they really hammer into the curriculum. It was in almost every class that I did, every project I had to show I was going through these steps. And there are a bunch of different derivations of this problem solving model. Some people use an 8-step solving model. They're like Six Sigma, I think uses a 5-step, but the titles are a little bit different. So it's something I learned in school. And then every company that you go to is probably going to have their own kind of spin on it. So I learned all of the Boeing language for the model, but I was already familiar with it in school.
Thank you.
Nice. Do we have time for one more?
Well, let's squeeze it in, hey?
Okay. Why are there less women in engineering than men?
That is a big question that people are honestly doing a lot of research on.
This is Dr. Mimi. We're going to talk a little bit about this in TechTrek. So this, we have a raise your hand, raise your voices session the evening, Monday evening, the first day of camp. And we're going to talk a little bit about that problem and how you can use the process Romy talks about to solve it.
Great. Thank you. Oh, Romy, I'd like to thank you so much. If you would like to give up your screen, I learned a lot and I found it very interesting. Thank you so much.
Yes. Let me figure out
While
how to stop
you're
sharing.
doing
There
that,
we go. Thank you, everyone.
well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Romy. Linda Quinby, who's a member of our group, is going to talk a little bit about her work in NASA, and I'll hand over to Linda to do that.
Okay, so I'm hopefully sharing my screen.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, hi everybody. I want to especially welcome all the tech trekkers and speech trekkers and families. And I'm going to be talking about Shakespeare, calculus, NASA, and me, which may at first seem like those aren't related subjects, but I'm also talking about the path from school to career. And sometimes we think of it as a straight line, that we figure out what we want and then we just go for it. But sometimes the figuring out what we want is the hard part. I like to think of it as either a series of traffic circles where you're trying to guess at which exit to get off, or a long and winding road where you hit various stopover points along the way. But even if you have a pretty firm objective in mind, there are still some jogs along the way. A colleague of mine at Lockheed used to say, you go through life putting tools in your toolbox, sometimes not knowing how you'll use them. Then one day a problem, challenge, or opportunity arises, and you reach into your toolbox and pull out just the right tool. I also think of education as opening doors. You're pursuing your interests, but you're also being open to new ones. So middle school, I think of as when I first started being able to make my own choices as to what classes I took. I already had an interest in math, and also I loved English and reading. So when I was offered an opportunity to take advanced math, starting with algebra, I thought, well, that sounded like a good idea. I had no idea what I was going to do with it. And also English and reading, my English teacher suggested that I try out for the school play. I was pretty shy, so I wasn't sure about that, but I decided, well, I'll try it. And I got a part in the play and had a lot of fun and overcame some of my shyness. And it was so much fun that I joined the summer theater group. No Oscars were involved, but it was a lot of fun. So then on to high school.